The broken oath. When Mr. Anderson opened a letter in that old California house that made his son break down in tears. Everyone thought he was poor, but one secret changed the fate of his entire family, and his enemies trembled. The first line of the letter did not say, "I love you, son." It said, "Robert, the man standing closest to my coffin, helped destroy your mother." Robert Anderson's hands went numb. Outside the cracked window of the old California house, the funeral guests were still walking across the dry Monterey grass, whispering about how poor his father had died. But inside that dusty living room, with rain tapping on the roof and his father's letter shaking in his hands, Robert realized one terrible thing. Mr. Samuel Anderson had not died poor. He had died hiding a war. 3 days earlier, Robert had been standing in a county hospital room, staring at a medical bill he could not pay. His father lay in bed, thin, pale and quiet, still wearing the same old brown jacket everyone in town mocked. "You never planned for anything," Robert whispered bitterly. "You left me with a broken house, unpaid bills and nothing else." Samuel's tired eyes opened. He reached weakly toward Robert's hand. "Fireplace," he breathed. "Old brick. Letter." Robert leaned closer. "What letter?" Samuel's lips trembled. "I broke my promise," he whispered. Then the machines beside him screamed. By morning Mr. Anderson was gone. At the funeral, Robert stood alone beside the coffin while his relatives watched like vultures waiting for a meal. Aunt Margaret Hale dabbed her dry eyes with a silk handkerchief. Her son Victor Hale stood beside her in a tailored black suit, smiling just enough to look cruel. "Poor Samuel," Margaret said loudly. "So much pride. So little money." Victor placed a hand on Robert's shoulder. "Cousin, let's be honest. You can't afford that old house. Sell it to me before the county takes it." Robert pulled away. "My father isn't even buried yet." Victor leaned in and whispered, "Dead men don't need houses." That sentence burned into Robert's chest. After the burial, Robert went back to the old Anderson home on the edge of Carmel Valley. The porch sagged. The paint had peeled. The kitchen smelled of cold coffee and old wood. For years, Robert had hated that house because it reminded him of everything his family never had. He walked to the fireplace. One brick near the bottom was loose. Behind it was a metal box covered in ash. Inside was a yellow envelope sealed with red wax. On the front, in his father's handwriting, were the words, "Open this when you think I failed you." Robert tore it open. And that was when he read the first line. "Robert, the man standing closest to my coffin, helped destroy your mother." His knees weakened. The letter continued. "Son, I know you believe I was poor. I let you believe it because I made a promise to your mother. Before she died, she begged me to hide the Anderson fortune until you became a man money could not buy." Robert's throat tightened. He kept reading. "Your grandfather bought this land in 1958. Not just the house. The mineral rights, the water rights and the development rights beneath the valley. For 30 years Margaret and Victor have tried to take it. They never wanted the house. They wanted the land under it." Robert looked around the broken room. The cracked walls. The old carpet. The leaking ceiling. This was not a poor man's home. This was a locked vault disguised as poverty. Then he turned the page. "Your mother discovered Victor's father was forging papers to steal the property. The stress broke her health. I could never prove it then. But I saved every document. If I ever told you too early, they would come for you too." Robert's eyes filled with tears. For years he had been ashamed of his father. Now he understood. Samuel Anderson had not been weak. He had been standing guard. And here is the question. If your father hid a fortune from you for 30 years to protect your soul, would you forgive him? Or would the secret break your heart? The next morning, Robert took the papers to the Monterey County Records Office. A clerk named Grace Whitman scanned the documents, then suddenly stopped typing. "Mr. Anderson," she said quietly, "do you know what this land is worth?" Robert swallowed. "A few $100,000? Grace turned the monitor toward him. "Try $48 million." Robert stepped back. $48 million. Grace lowered her voice. "There's more. Someone filed a transfer request last week." "Who?" She printed the document. The name at the bottom was Victor Hale. Robert felt the grief in his chest turn into fire. By sunset he was sitting across from Linda Carter, one of the toughest estate attorneys in Northern California. She read Samuel's letter, the old deeds, the forged notices, and the hidden tax records. When she finished, she looked at Robert and said, "Your father wasn't just protecting land. He was protecting evidence." 2 weeks later, Victor Hale walked into the old Anderson house with Margaret and their lawyer, Ethan Brooks. Victor smiled. "Robert, this can end peacefully. Sign the deed. I'll give you enough to disappear with dignity." Robert stood near the fireplace, calm now. "Dignity," he said. "You tried to steal from a dying man." Margaret snapped. "Your father was nothing but a stubborn old fool." Robert's eyes moved to her. "No," he said. "He was the only honest person in this family." Victor laughed. "You don't have the money to fight me." The front door opened. Linda Carter stepped inside with 2 investigators from the district attorney's office. Victor's smile vanished. Linda held up a folder. Forged transfer documents. Hidden notices. Fraudulent claims. Coercion of an elderly property owner. Ethan Brooks went pale. Margaret gripped the back of a chair. Victor looked at Robert, and for the first time in his life he did not look powerful. He looked afraid. Robert stepped closer and said, "My father wore old boots so you would never know what he was standing on." Within months, Ethan Brooks lost his license. Margaret's claim was thrown out in court. Victor's accounts were frozen while prosecutors investigated years of fraud. The relatives who once called Samuel poor stopped laughing. The enemies who circled the Anderson home began to tremble. But Robert did not sell the house. He restored it. The broken porch was rebuilt. His mother's roses were planted along the fence. The fireplace was cleaned, but the loose brick remained exactly where Samuel had left it. Then Robert used part of the fortune to create the Samuel Anderson Mercy Fund, paying medical bills for families who were one emergency away from losing everything. 1 year later, Robert stood at his father's grave with the original letter in his hand. The California fog rolled over the hills. "I'm sorry, Dad," Robert whispered. "I thought you left me nothing." A breeze lifted the corner of the letter. That was when Robert noticed writing on the back he had never seen before. "Son, revenge makes your enemies suffer. Justice makes your father proud." Robert closed his eyes. For the first time since childhood, he smiled through his tears. He finally understood the truth. The real inheritance was not the land. It was not the money. It was becoming the kind of man who could hold power without becoming cruel. So tell me, if you were Robert, would you forgive the relatives who tried to destroy your family, or would you make sure they paid for every lie? Moral: a poor-looking man with honor is richer than a mansion full of liars. Money can change a family's future, but truth can save its soul. If you believe Robert did the right thing, write yes in the comments. Like this story, subscribe and stay close, because the next hidden family secret may be even more shocking.